Director of Strategic Projects. Thank you, Crystal. I'm the Director of Strategic Projects for Supply Chain. Today, we're here to give you a demonstration of the update coming later this year to the Aggie Enterprise requisition page. Hopefully, this is something you've already heard about. We've done our best to kind of put the word out that this is something that's coming later in the year. But if not, if this is your first time, you're at the right spot. A great opportunity to kind of learn about it and see what's coming later. This is not training, so as a reminder, no need to take notes or anything like that. We will record as we're doing that the session, and then we'll make this available on our website. We will share the link once we have it available, and anyone couldn't make it, hopefully they can watch through there as well. So what we'll do today, I have a couple slides that I want to share, kind of give a little bit of an intro to everybody. Then I'll turn it over to Matt, who's going to navigate to the new UI and give us that demo. We will try to take a few breaks here or there in case folks want to go off mute and ask any questions. But as always, you're always free to add those questions on the chat, and then we'll do our best to answer them as well as we go. So with that said, let me share my screen here. Hopefully everybody's seeing my PowerPoint. So just a little background about this new UI, this new user interface. This is a mandate by Oracle that every user of this requisition module moves over to this new updated user interface by September. So that's really a big reason why we're doing that. And as you can see here, we've landed on a go live date at this point, which is September 22nd of 25. So that is what, 4 months to go, maybe about that time. We already have a website out there, and hopefully it's already been added to the, maybe Crystal or Jim can help me put that on the chat for folks to see. Make sure to bookmark it. We have some good information in there already. We got some screenshots of some of the stuff that Matt is going to show us later, and then we'll probably use that website to continue to communicate to folks. Some of the things that we learn about this new UI and some more information that you may want to know ahead of September. So I wanted to give a little breakdown as well of what we've done so far, and then what's happening really the next couple of months, right? So we started looking at this new user interface last year, May of 24, really just months after we went live with Aggie Enterprise. We already knew this was coming. Again, this is a mandate from Oracle that's been in the works for a long time. They are refreshing a lot of their pages, and the requisition module just happens to be the first one that they're mandated for us to go live with. So since, again, May of 24, we've been looking at this. We've completed a lot of testing since then. The latest kind of official testing that we completed was after the March update that we just had. It's called the 25A quarterly update in Oracle. We have about 75 or so scenarios that we're covering. We're trying to do those after every quarterly update. It's kind of a mix of processing, workflow, mapping, reporting, trying to cover as many things as we can when it comes to this testing. So again, since we started doing the testing last May, we've identified about 50 or so gaps from what the current process looks like. Anywhere from little things like, oh, that button used to be on the right corner, now it's on the left corner and it's blue instead of yellow, or things like that, all the way up to something that is really impactful to us, like, oh, I wasn't able to split accounting on certain lines, as close to like 4 months ago, but now we're able to. So we've been trying to document all of those, make sure that we have a really good understanding of where the functionality was. To this point, probably 40 or so have been resolved by Oracle. We do expect the remaining 10 to be addressed in the upcoming releases. Again, 25B, which is happening in June, and then 25C, which is happening in September. So this is a big reason why we're waiting until the very end to go live with this new UI, because there's some functionality that we're waiting on that we're hoping that they will deliver by the time it is time to go. So a little bit more of what we've done in terms of engagement with different groups and people. We had been having big bi-weekly meetings with Oracle developers to ensure that we were letting them know, talk about those 50 gaps or whatever that we had, make sure that we were communicating about the things that we were finding, identifying things that weren't there, making sure we were aware on when those updates were coming, and make sure that they were aware of the things that we needed, right? We do have a knowledge share monthly meetings that we're still having with other higher eds, not just the other UCs, but other higher eds across the country. They are also preparing to roll out this new update. Actually, some of them are already live with this new user interface, which is great for us because we get to learn from them about any pitfalls, or again, lessons learned after actually taking the plunge and going live with it. So again, so far so good, but the engagement is good for us to be prepared as much as we can on our side. We did do a brief demo of this user interface in our February and April SEM Hot Topic sessions. Hopefully everybody knows about those. But we did present this UI a little bit there. This specific demo obviously is only on the user interface. So we'll try to spend a little more time going into some more of the details that you're going to see later in September. And one thing that's really important for us, we completed a couple rounds of super user testing February and April. Now, we reached out to a few folks on campus, some of them that have helped us in the past when it comes to some testing, a while before going live with Aggie Enterprise. We got them together, got them to help us take a look at the UI, make sure we're not missing anything in our analysis, make sure they were able to do a little bit of testing, and they were able to still do a little bit of their work. Make sure we were on the same page about the things that we've already identified that are missing, and just kind of make sure that we, again, as a group centrally, we had to admit something that is important to our customers. I'm sure you would want to learn a little bit more about the opportunity to jump in there yourselves. And again, that's in this what's next section here. We have started working on our KBA update. So we started that last month. We expect to finish that by the end of this month, probably going into June. We're not going to release anything, obviously, until we do go live with the UI in September, but we are preparing by updating all our KBAs. Some of them, we just have to update a couple words and just maybe some screenshots. A couple of them, we do have to change quite a bit of things. So we're getting an early start on that. Very similar approach we'll have for our training videos. There's some videos out there that we have that I know folks really like. So we'll do our best to get those updated before our go live in September. And then a last point here in terms of what's next for you. Again, another thing that you guys will really care about is how do you get an early entry into this new UI to start doing a little bit of testing yourself. So we are trying to formalize something likely for the month of August. So a month and a half before we have to go live here to allow all users, some users, most users, that's what we're trying to kind of sort through right now, entry into a testing environment, a similar environment that Matt is going to use for his demo here, so you can get some hands-on experience of what this is going to look like. Now, one thing I want to be very transparent about, as I mentioned earlier, this is a mandate from Oracle for us to go live with it. So when the time comes and you get a chance to look at that new UI, hopefully it is to help you get used to what's coming. And obviously we will love the feedback. We'll take all your feedback when it comes to our KVAs and maybe what you like, what you don't like, but we will still have to go live with this in September of this year. So a lot more details to come, hopefully very soon. We'll be meeting next week, I believe, to discuss again some of our planning for this testing phase, super user entry, whatever we end up calling it. And again, we'll have more information for you all on the website, through our communications, and any other channels that we have for Aggie Enterprise. So with that said, actually, let me see. I don't know if there's any questions about some of the things that I worked through. I don't see anything. Anyone has any questions to get started before we jump right into the demo? All right, Matt, all yours.
Thank you, Eddie. Make sure I share the right screen here. Hello, everybody. I'm Matt Zarnowski with Supply Chain Management, and I'm assuming that most of the people here, and there are a lot of people here, are familiar with the current requisitions screen in Aggie Enterprise. If you want to see what the new requisition screen looks like, I assume that means you know what the current requisition screen looks like. But to refresh everyone's memory, this is our current requisitions module in Aggie Enterprise with our recent requisitions here, our news here. Here we've got our punch outs and our stores, recent purchases, and then our request forms down here in a text box. This is what it currently looks like. It's going to look a little different. And this is where I also reiterate some things that Eddie said and stress that what we're going to show you today is what we have right now. This is not exactly what it's going to look like in September. We know some changes are coming, so we know certain things are going to look different. We just can't show them to you right now. And then there are other things that we are still deciding how we want it to look. So between changes that we know are coming and some changes we can intentionally make, there's going to be slight differences between what this looks like now and what this will look like in September, but it's mainly here. So this is the current one, and with a click of my finger, this is the new environment that you will be seeing come September. This is the Redwood self-service procurement interface. Redwood is the new layout or design language that Oracle is going to be using for all of its or the Oracle Fusion screens here. So even though we're seeing it in procurement first, it will be moving to other segments later. The main thing you'll notice is that it has that modern language where there's a lot of more open space. Things are a lot cleaner looking. It's a very popular look in software right now. At the top here, we have your recent requisitions. Now we've got our news here. And down here, we've got our punch outs and our forms and our stores. One of the big differences you're going to realize as you start to work through the interface here is that we're now doing a lot of our navigation through these bottom tabs. There's a piece of Oracle that we use for connecting with our outside suppliers that has already moved to Redwood. It also has bottom tabs. This seems to be the theme that comes along with Redwood. So as we move other features into Redwood, I'm assuming we'll see them there as well. So self-service procurement, this tab is this main screen here. This is where you're going to see all the things we just talked about are in the self-service procurement. If you click on the My Requisitions tab, this is the equivalent of Manage Requisitions from the previous UI. So this is the screen that by default, it will show you all of the requisitions you have entered. However, this is also the search screen where you'll be looking at where you'll be searching for other requisitions by other individuals. The search is significantly different than it works in the current UI. I will be talking about that more in depth later. For now, I'm just going to focus on the fact that this is where the My Requisitions screen is your search as well as looking at your own requisitions. You have a little bit of a choice in layout here. It's either going to group them by requisition, which is, I think, the way most people would want to use them, or it'll show you all your lines. So you can see all of your lines here, but if you do a lot of multi-line requisitions, this gets cluttered very quickly. I suspect most people are going to stick with the requisition view, which lumps the requisition together, and then you click into the requisition to look around at what's in there. And then we have our cart. The cart is also significantly, I'll have to add something to the cart to show you later. The cart is significantly different than our current cart. It's got currently, when you look at our cart, everything's kind of on the same page and it's all there. There are 3 distinct areas to the cart. And once I add something to the cart, we can go through those. But there's the header section, the line section, and then there's the delivery and billing section. All those sections are shown slightly different. If we go back to the front page, the self-service procurement page here, you can see we still have our preferences. This used to be under a drop down, but now it's right here, preferences. This is where, right, all new users need to go in and make sure their preferences are set up properly. Got to make sure you have your requisition business unit up here, your deliver to location, and this is where you can set up your default charge accounts. So adding an account in here actually has some nice features. So I'm going to add a second account here, so I don't just have one. You can add a second one. Give it a nickname so that I can select it later when I'm filling out my cart and billing information. And then as you go into this field here, you can see it says enter alias or segment. And so you start typing in here for the different segments of your chart of accounts, and it'll bring up the choices in a drop down and you can select from them. So if I start typing here and I say, oh, yep, this is the one I want, and I can go through this and I can build out my chart of accounts. You can also use the name of individual segments to search for those. Like, oh, yes, I need this one because it's receiving. So this is a nice improvement over what we currently have. A little bit of a function add here. Let me finish setting up this generic account here. I'm gonna, oh, come on. Boy, all the practicing for nothing. Oh. My purpose. There we go. Now I have two accounts set up in here. Click on update. And then we've got back here. All right, so that's the general overview. Before I start building a card and getting further into the details here, any questions?
Man,
How many accounts can you add?
That's a great question. I don't offhand know the answer. Does anybody know the max number of default accounts?
I don't think we've ever run into the max, whatever it is today. I guess someone might have a multiple, could definitely let us know in the chat, but I don't know that we've ever run into a limit.
I'm not sure if you answered this question or not in the chat, but I also had it. If we already have all of our chart strings saved, will that just transfer over with this new update, or will we have to go back in and
No, all of your personal setup should carry over to the new UI.
Okay, thank you.
PPM accounts, is that going to be an issue?
An issue in what way?
Well, like entering all that in, usually I just put in the project number and hit enter and it fills in automatically.
I mean, yeah, so projects always work differently than chart of accounts. And as you added I'll add a project later in this and I'll show you.
Okay.
For projects, what happens for most of not most of, if there's only one value for the other fields in a project, it defaults to that singular value. And a lot of projects, I believe, are set up that way, where they only have one other value in those other fields. But I will specifically go through a project in the next segment.
Great, thanks.
All right. If we don't have other questions, I'm going to go ahead and add some things to my cart.
Hey, Matt, I'm going to the chat, so just FYI, I'll answer on chat those that I see.
Oh, are there questions? Well, are there questions in the chat I should answer?
Let me see. I'm responding to Audrey right now. If you want to maybe go to Kevin, I think you know that one.
Let's see. Yeah, I haven't looked in the chat. Sorry.
No worries. No worries.
The new UI, I'm just jumping to the end, sorry, to Joanne's question. The new UI shouldn't impact requisitions at all. Requisitions created in one UI can flow in the other UI as well. So this shouldn't impact any workflow. Wendy has 75 default accounts. So congrats, Wendy. You win an award for that, and it's impressive. Will it save both PPM and GL chart strings? You can only have, sorry, Eddie just answered it. You can only have one PPM as default in your account. That is an Oracle restriction. We've spoke with them multiple times about changing that. I believe it might be somewhere on their roadmap, but it's not coming soon. You can copy and paste an account string. I will also say it is, but it's not always happy when you do that. But you certainly can. It works a lot better now than it did 6 months ago. Anything I missed in here?
I don't think so. I think we covered most of them. No, that's it.
All right. So here's one of the unfortunate things you will notice if you get in here. When you go to the punch out page or to the request forms page, they are currently in what seems like a random order. It's not actually random. It is actually driven by the number assigned to the form or the punch out, but that's a number we can't see. It's in the background. And so it ends up looking rather random. This is going to be fixed before we go live. And at a minimum, they should be in alphabetical order. But oh. So let's add a quantity line. We're gonna buy some birdhouses. Oh, no, category. So you see that as you get into these fields, you start typing in them and they will auto-populate with what you're looking for. Hopefully that'll be a nice change. The supplier will do. And then you've got your notes and you can now drag and drop files into here. That's a change from our previous UI. I can add this to my cart. And then you can immediately from this screen hit create another request if you choose, and that will keep you on the same form. So I'm still in a quantity-based form, and it will keep the supplier information, the supplier and the supplier sites and agreement if you have it there, it will keep that in place. So if you are buying 10 lines from the same supplier, you can just keep hitting create another line, and then you can add it into here without having to start the form over again, without having to duplicate the line. You still can go back and start a form over again, and you can still duplicate a line, but this is a nice addition of a different way to continue adding lines from the same supplier. Got all our information there. I'm going to add this to the cards. Now let's view our card. So here we have our new cart, still loading. Let this complete here. There we go. And so what we have up here where it says requisition summary, this is traditionally what we refer to as the header. So this is something that applies, everything up here applies to the entire requisition. And then we have our lines down below. And the things down here obviously are each individual to the line. So, and then from the line, like this for line 1 here, we have the edit button for that line. And if I click this edit button, it's going to allow me to change the quantity. I can change that, or I can go into the edit delivery and billing methods for the line. And here's where I can select my delivery location. That's my default. Here's my billing information for the line here. I can edit this, I can split it. When I come into here, I can enter a charge account number from scratch, or I can select charge accounts. So that's by clicking on here, that's where I get my access to my saved default accounts. This is also, even though it's called delivery and billing information, this is the field where you are, or the form where you are going to find our additional information fields that are on the line in the current UI. So this is where you can find your R&D exception, invoice requires fiscal approval, non-taxable, trade-in value. All of these items are here on the line in the delivery and billing information section. Now we come back here. If we go into the header, here at the header, we have the description field. This is the standard field we have now in the current UI. This defaults to the description of line item 1. In the new UI, it is blank. So if you are somebody who has been using that default, you now have an extra step. You're going to have to put something in here. But this is where you're going to name your requisition and put in your business purpose. So I am buying supplies for the Jones lab. At the header level, this is also impacting everything below it. So if I change the delivery location at the header level, if I change the charge account at the header level, it is going to apply to all of the lines. If I put a note in here, it will apply to all the lines. And some of these things we're still moving around, so I don't want to say too much about those. We'll just update this. But we talked about projects. So let's go ahead and line 2 here. I'll edit the delivery and billing information for line 2. Let's use a project for line 2. So I want to edit this billing. So let's clear this out. And we'll go up to the project and put in the project number. And then we'll still have to pick a task number. Just like in our current setup, the expenditure type is driven by the category name. So the only 2 choices I would get here ever would be the category lab supplies, or if the category name I was using had a capital asset possibility, you would be able to select that here. Expenditure org. All right. So we've updated that there. That's and we'll update this, the header, get back to our cart here. There we go. That's the end of my second segment. So do we have more questions? I'll poke my head in the chat.
Hi, Matt, I have a question.
Go for it.
Yeah, before, in order to view punch out or to even create a requisition, one would have to create or set their preferences. Is that still true for this?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I'm sorry. I wish I could tell you that that was something that came with this new UI that you don't have to do it anymore. But no, new users will still have to go into their requisition preferences and select the appropriate business unit. That is still a requirement. But anybody who's already set up, and I believe that's probably everyone on this call, anybody who's already set up will not have to do it a second time when the UI changes.
Thanks.
Eddie's really on top of these questions. Mark's in there too. All right.
I think we got a few here coming out.
Can we edit more on the lines after an order ships? Oh, I'm going to take the last one because it's easy. Do tabs reset when you click into another tab? No, you can totally click between these tabs and come back to them. In fact, if you are in the cart and you want to go and add new things to your cart, the way you would do it is by going back to self-service procurement here. So like if you were using a punch out and you added things from one punch out and you wanted to go to another punch out, you'd come back here. If you added things with one form, like I did the quantity based, and now I need to add a line from a different form, I need to do a fixed price line, I would come back here and do it. So moving between these tabs doesn't change their content. You can freely move back and forth between. Can you view a PDF prior to submitting the requisition? You should be able to by the time we go live. Can you edit a punch out requisition prior to submittal? No. We're doing short ones, yes. Oh no, this is a long question. Manage requisition interface. So the manage requisitions is now my requisitions, and I'm good. My third segment will be talking in depth about this. So we will get there in a second.
Let's see. Mark, you got the furniture question. Deanne, can we edit more on the lines after an order ships? When the vendor sends invoices. So I think you're asking about change orders, right? Because you have your order already done and you've shipped something. The concept of the process remains the same. Just like today, when you have an open PO, you can do a change order for that PO, then you should be able to do it in the future UI as well. If anything, something that's going to be maybe a little bit hard to get used to at first. When you do a change order, it will take you into the old look again. And that's because you're going into the purchase order area, not the requisition area. So again, Deanne, to circle back on the question is yes, you should be able to edit the lines, but it is no different as you do today when you do a change order. And hopefully that answers that.
Yeah, Eric also was asking about editing orders after it's been approved. I think you're just talking about a change order there. No, the change order process, including add a line, is not going to change. In fact, as Eddie hinted at, well, you said it frankly, Eddie, when you actually click into edit order on the requisition, it will take you out of the new UI and back into the old UI because the change order happens on the purchase order and that hasn't changed.
Tracy, your question, email notifications will look the same. Yes, I just responded, it should look the same. I will give a caveat that I believe notifications is its own, what's the right word here? Not its own module, but it's its own function within Aggie Enterprise. And I think that there will also be updates to those, but they're not specifically related to the requisition module changing. So if they do change, it isn't because the requisition module is changing. It is because all notifications are changing. But ultimately, they should look pretty much the same.
Yes, you can add account info to multiple lines. It's not all the functionality that you are used to is not there today, but it will be there by the time we go live. You will be able to select multiple lines and change the information on them.
Okay, let's see. You get that last one. Order requires a split cost between two accounts. You want to show that one real quick, man? The split
Oh, so if
on
you
the
go into the,
delivery.
yeah, sure, we can go to, if you go into the, this one, delivering and billing info section for the line, and you come down here, and then you got to click on the ellipsis. I admit not the most straightforward take action indicator. You have edit or split, and you can hit split here, and then you'll be able to add it. This is this is what you're adding. So you have the one distribution here already. You'll be adding distribution 2 by filling in this section and then create it, and then you'll be able to take the split from. No, the manage orders section will look just the same. The purchase order module is not changing at all.
Again, sorry, I'm repeating the answers. I just want to make sure for the chat, since we export that out, we have all that as well.
Yeah, sorry, change orders, you can't change the supplier name. That's going to continue. None of the functionality on the change orders is changing.
All right. I think, and this is great. I love that we have a lot of questions about this. And I think we've covered all of them. I think there might be one about the justification actually that I saw that I need to go back and read. But I think everything else has been covered. So Matt, why don't we move on to the next section? And then hopefully, I think this is the last one you have, and then we'll just, kind of stay back and see what other things we need to answer. If maybe we didn't get to one, maybe somebody can go off mute and we can talk through it.
So I just pointing this out as I'm moving over to the My Requisitions section. If I want to clear my cart, currently you use save and close. Here it's just save for later. That's the difference here. So if we click on save for later in our cart, it's going to save this as a requisition with this requisition number. So it's no longer a cart at that point. It is an incomplete requisition complete with a requisition number. So I'll save this for later and clear out my cart briefly. And then let's hop over to My Requisitions. So as I mentioned earlier, by default, when you click into My Requisitions, and this is why it's called My Requisitions, the default here is entered by your name. So it's going to default to searching and displaying for you all requisitions that were entered by you. Now, what you're used to in the manage requisitions screen, and frankly, in most software we use, is discrete fields where you enter different criteria to search by, right? You will have a requisition number field. You will have an entered by field. You will have a created by date. You will have the order field, and you put things in those fields and you search. Well, what we have here is more of a unified search with suggestions and some fuzzy search built in, which is going to take some getting used to. I suspect this is what most people will struggle with out of the gate. Once you're able to find your way around it, I think it's going to work fine for everyone. So you've got, start us off with this. You can put a different name in there if you want, but if you, let's say you have you've been doing this job for 3 years, and there are 3 years worth of requisitions by you there. You can start narrowing it down. You can narrow it down by submission date. These buttons underneath the search field here are suggestions that the system is making to add to this, right? So these are suggested filters that you can put on there. Do you want to sort by supplier? You're like, I need to see all of the orders I placed with a supplier for last year. So I can add the supplier filter. Now there's a supplier filter up here. It defaults to Fisher, probably because I order from Fisher the most. But if I click on, once the filter is up here in my search bar, if I click on it, it's now a drop down. And this is a subset. This isn't all of the suppliers. Because the first criteria we have here is entered by me, entered by Matt Zarnowski. So we've already said we're only looking at requisitions entered by Matt Zarnowski. And so this, when I search then by supplier to narrow it down further, this is simply a list of all suppliers that Matt Zarnowski's requisitions contain. So we're not going through all 40,000 suppliers. We're only looking at the ones entered by me, and then you can click on that and narrow it down. So let's see all of the Spectrum ones. These are all of the Spectrum ones I personally have done. You can sort by action. You can sort by or filter by action or status. You can look for you can search for all things that are entered by somebody that aren't approved. So, and you start that by building these things on here. Here's the one caveat I'm going to give you that may not be ready by September. Currently, the entered by, you know how I showed you that if I put the supplier button up here, I could get the drop down of suppliers and I could select from there and start typing in there, right? I can put the supplier up here and click on it, and I can start typing a supplier name. And it'll pull it up based on what I'm typing into this field, which is, handy and convenient. Currently, for the entered by field, if you click on it to try and use it as a search or a drop down, it takes a long time and then it doesn't really work. We have too many users for the way Oracle currently has this field set up. They have told us that this will be working in the future, but I can't promise that this will be here in September. If you need to put somebody else's name in there, my best advice at this point is to clear this out, and you can just use the fuzzy search. You can type somebody's name in there. Like if I want to, or email, if I want to see what Eddie's done, well, there you go. That didn't work great. Don't just type in Eddie's email. But you can do entered by. There we go. And we can, add submission date. We can edit that. No, we want to just see this month. So you can add these criteria, you can category, and then you can filter things down by building them out. Click on more filters. You can look at, other options that are coming here. And also feel free to experiment as you go through with this by typing things in to the fuzzy search and seeing what it recommends. It's going to take a little bit of getting used to, but it's also going to potentially give you some ways of searching that are better than what we had before, or at least more varied. There are more ways of searching here than we had previously. The other key thing that I will note is that once you have done your requisition and you've gotten the requisitions that you want to look at, please be aware that we still have the export button here. If you click on the export button, it's going to take all of the items from your search results. In this case, I've got 22 items on that list. It will take all of the data from them and export them into an Excel file, and you will have much more information than what is available on this screen. What you see on this screen is not all of the data available, and if you export it, you'll get that. So I think for a lot of people, who are looking for data as opposed to I just need to find that requisition so I can see what its status is. Those are different things. But if you're the person who's looking for data as opposed to just trying to find a requisition, you're going to do the search to get your requisitions and then do an export, and you're going to work out of that Excel sheet, which I suspect is what most people do today who are looking for that kind of information. But this is, anyways, this is also the field where you will just enter the requisition number. If you have a requisition number that you've copied and you come up here, clear this out, just put your requisition number in there, and there you go. So that's a little bit about the search here. I'm sure some of you are looking at this and going, that's really weird. And I apologize for it, but this is what we'll deal with. And we've been playing around with this for quite a while now. We're convinced that people are going to be able to use it. It's just going to be a big change, and it's going to be a big change in habit. And I understand that it can take some mental energy. Okay, so what questions do we have about this?
Matt,
Yes.
question. So in the current environment, I start off all my requisitions with the financial department. So in that field you're on, can you just type in the financial department by itself and then it'll auto-populate everything that I've entered?
Tell me what you want to tell me what it is.
Sure. That's right, VCAH 104. I'm just curious.
Did I get that right?
Yes. It's not case sensitive, is it?
It shouldn't be.
Okay, perfect. Okay. Perfect, thank you.
You're welcome.
Amanda, can you clarify your question about the filter by line item? If you feel comfortable.
Yeah, I just had a question. So I just meant more so like if I was looking for a specific line item on a requisition, but I couldn't remember what the requisition was, would I just go to lines and like search for that, or could I search for that in the search bar?
You can totally search for that in the search bar.
Okay.
This is one of those things where you're going to have to experiment and see how well it works for you. But if you type something into this search requisitions bar that we're looking at, it is searching through all of the information in the requisitions. It's not just searching the requisition number. It's not just searching the justification field or the description field. It's searching through the lines and the line descriptions. So you should totally be able to put that up here and you will get results. I think the question becomes, how many extraneous results will you get?
Right. Yeah. No, that's good. Thank you.
And then the last question, will this new interface let us see where a pending requisition is en route before approval? So you should be able to see that today. So hopefully this is not something that you're thinking is an improvement, but I believe you should see it in the future as well.
I'm going to make a leap, Eddie. I'm going to guess that they're asking about chart of account routing where, it routes to the department fiscal approver, but you can't see who the person is, right? It's routing to the group. And it's right, because there are like 7 people in that group and you can't tell who those people are without leaving the system. And unfortunately, that is not going to improve with the new UI.
And just for context, that is based on roles and how the roles were set up at UC Davis for approvers. To be able to add multiple people as approvers to the departments, that you needed to set it up in that specific manner, which does not allow you to see the names. So that's, if maybe that was the question, that's the answer. But also you should be able to see the routing in terms of what step it is at, just maybe not who it is with. Hi, Shannon.
Hi there, Eddie. So I just wanted to share about a tool that will help people. It's not the official campus segmenter tool, but it is a tool that is set up called Finjector. And if someone enters a chart string in Finjector, it will show you who the supply chain approvers are.
The secret tip to that is you need to save it.
Yes, you are correct, Matt.
I'm just saying, if we're introducing novices to Finjector, that confused me for a while, so I'm passing that tip along.
Okay, Thank you. That is correct. You do need to save the chart string. I will say that I keep 2 test chart strings where I just go in and I don't try to save them and keep them indefinitely. I just use them 1 ppm and 1 GL to get what I need. And then the next time I need something, I change it again and again and again. So that is a place though where you can look to see who is part of that group. Let me know if you want to show some sort of demonstration.
Yeah,
Thanks,
maybe we need to throw that in a tips and tricks.
Yeah. Miguel.
Hey, so I'm an account manager. I'm not sure if you guys went through this. I had to step away for a second, but so I do some requisition approvals, and so I know that this whole new look might change the way that we view the document history because I have a PI that wants to make sure that he reviews all the requisitions before me as an account manager approve the requisition. So does it look different now or
The document history?
yeah, document history.
I
Okay,
mean,
it's just right up there.
it's different in that, sure, it's a different layout, but here, we'll click into it.
Oh, you might have to pick an approved requisition, Matt. Oh, right. No, never mind.
It's just,
All right.
sorry, everybody,
for
I
everyone.
didn't say this at the beginning, but just a warning, the test environment is slow. It should not be like this when we move to production.
Okay, so I see the submitted by, withdrawn, submitted, approved. Okay, so it looks a little different.
Yeah, exactly. It's a different UI. It's laid out a little bit differently, but the same information should be contained here.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thank you.
Mike, can you go, Matt, can you go into the, I think it's the life cycle? See under actions on that one? Yeah. I don't know. This is one of the things that I really like when I first saw this. I just wanted to point it out. You can actually now see the order. And also if there's invoices against this requisition order, you will actually all be able to see it here. So I think that's an improvement. Before you would have to go to the PO, you can actually just look at it from the requisitions and you have some kind of cool little details at the bottom there
Yeah,
as well.
yeah,
So.
that's a good point. And also, I didn't let's get this out of here. I actually didn't point this out earlier. But yes, speaking of things that are a nice improvement, if you go to the My Requisitions and you're searching by things that you've entered, we now have some lovely indications of what status they're in and color coding. So these are draft, these are ordered. I don't know that I have anything in incomplete, but they would show up. And then once the PO has been generated off a requisition, it also shows up on this exact same screen. So here's your purchase order number right here in the list of your requisitions. You don't have to go into the requisition itself. Everything's right here on the screen, telling you the status, telling you what the PO number is. So this is a nice little bonus.
Quick question on the chat, Matt. You want to do a quick show him how to duplicate a requisition and how to reassign one?
Yeah, we're going to duplicate a line, right? Or a full requisition. Which one?
Whichever.
So for this requisition, I can view the details, I can go view the order. That would take me to the purchase order, edit, duplicate. So this is duplicating the requisition. Oh, I picked a catalog one. My apologies. You cannot duplicate.
Let me give you one that I have, Matt, real quick. I'll put it on chat if you want to take that one.
Oh, this one should be fine. Right
Okay,
here.
cool.
What were
All
you
right.
saying? You can't duplicate a catalog order?
Correct.
Okay, great.
So here we go. So I duplicated that requisition. It is now added the lines to my cart as an active cart with a new requisition number, and I would be able to submit here if I chose. So it again, test environment was slow, but we got there in the end. And what was somebody else was asking to see?
Reassign.
I think I have to
So
save for later.
Yeah, you do have to pick one that is not yours. The reassign.
Oh, you mean no? That would be if I needed to reassign it to myself. But if I want to reassign it to somebody else,
Sure.
and there you go. And I even got a little pop up that said it reassigned. Yep, there. And now Eddie's name is on that requisition. Actually, you know, that felt really quick. That felt like that might be an improvement too.
And I'm in the environment and I just saw it coming my way. So that's good. All right, well, we're right at time, 2:59, and time is going to be 3. Thank you all for coming. Hopefully it was very helpful. A lot more information on this coming in the next few months. Again, we're actively working on updating our KVAs. As soon as we have more information on allowing folks to get into the system, we'll definitely share that with everybody. Start thinking that August is going to be that time when we're going to have that access. Hopefully enough time before the go live date so you all can get comfortable with it. We'll have office hours. We'll continue to kind of share as much as we can with you all. So thank you for coming. Again, office hours are still on if you want to come and ask us questions about this anyway. Thank you.